I'm really getting killed here because it's a small space and there's a lot of text trying to kill me. So I'm just happen to be just, it's a video game. Arteroids is the battle of poetry against itself and the forces of dullness. Here's the Arteroids Windows projector, which comes as a 32-bit executable program. Now this is a textual shoot 'em up. As these things go, that is, as textual shoot 'em ups go, this is relatively polished because I've worked on it a long time and a lot. But it really isn't polished that I was adding to it. I was adding layers of game and play. I was exploring the concept. There's a game mode and a play mode. In game mode, there are 216 levels of sudden death. Arteroids explores the tensions between poetry and game. It doesn't smooth over those tensions. There are points of drama in the game. Let's have a look at the scores. They show up in game mode. Here's the scores. The top scores are your level scores, your overall scores. The bottom scores are world level scores. These get flushed out occasionally, so it's not for all time. And this lets you change between levels. Now we're looking at level 10 scores. Now we're looking at level 9 scores. There's 216 levels of play, but there are also different conceptual levels of play. Kids play it as a video game. Some adults play it as a video game with interesting, unusual relations with poetry. And yet others think of it as a poem, something that explores the relation between poetry and game. Play mode is broader than game mode. You read, you compose, you can play the game, you can skip among levels. Scores are not saved on the internet. And there's indefinite life if you want it. You can be deathless or mortal. So here we are in play mode. You can also enter Word for Weirdos. In Word for Weirdos, you can save poetry from yourself. You can create your own Arteroids texts and then shoot them up. When you play Arteroids, the blue text hunts you down and kills you. The green text is indifferent to your existence. It just travels in a random straight line, though it will kill you if you run into it. Like a sonnet or a haiku is a literary form, Word for Weirdos defines a literary form for the texts in Arteroids. Each line of the outer green text appears on screen as a marauding green text that will blow you up if you run into it. When you shoot a green text, it explodes into the corresponding inner green text. For instance, if you shoot line 3 of the outer green text, it explodes into line 3 of the inner green text. When you click on a line of the outer green text, it turns white, as does the corresponding line in the inner green text. The same goes for the two blue texts. The top blue text is the outer blue text. Each line of it is a text that appears on screen and hunts you down. When you shoot a blue text, it explodes into the corresponding line of the blue inner text. As with the green text, when you click on a line of the blue text, it turns white, as does the corresponding line of the inner blue text. So the rule for this literary form is the two green texts need to have the same number of lines, and the two blue texts need to have the same number of lines. And the red text is the id entity. It's the text you drive around. It also is editable. You can create, name, and save your own texts, or you can use several that are included in Word for Weirdos. Helen Thorington of Turbulence.org wrote one, as did Christina McPhee. It's a very noisy interface. The sounds in Arteroids, by the way, are all my voice randomly pitch shifted. So, let's do a little bit of playing. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-huh. Uh-oh. The object of the game here is to max out the meanometer. Now you see the meanometer over here. I'm really getting killed here because it's a small space and there's a lot of text trying to kill me. So I'm just happen to be just, you know, it's a video game. Yes, it's a video game, and am I losing? Well, you see that the meanometer is not too low. I will eventually get there, you know. What we play is life, Louis Armstrong. Poetry isn't a game that somebody wins, he said. He was so right, and he was so wrong. He was right in the sense that poetry makes a place for itself, for how we think about it, and that place is not for sale. And it isn't even won in poetry contests. But of course, while that's true and a very important thing about poetry, it's also true that there's a lot of game that goes on in poetry, like there is in other arts, and it's interesting. Let's take the level down a little bit. I want to show you some other things with it. So let's try that again at a lower level. So you see the texts are not out to get me too badly this time. So now it can be more of a textual experience. You can just drive around shooting text, you know, reading. God, can you believe it? You can actually read this. Desire vortex. I want to explode. This text seems to be somewhat randy. So you see that this is a sort of a poem that you can read at this speed. Although, as we progress, it looks like there are more texts that are coming into play, and indeed, as the meanometer increases, you get more texts. The basic meaning of Arteroids, which kids get, is that it's a poem. Kids think, poetry can be like this. It doesn't have to be words on a page. Tip: the game is over when the meanometer reaches the top of the stage. Well, that is actually a real tip. Most of the texts that we read in this situation where we've finished a level, either having won or having died, are not quite so helpful. There's hundreds of them, and they form a kind of a text in themselves. The relations of game and art to play. Play is the intersection of game and art, isn't it? What you think and feel about art is as important as what anybody else thinks and feels about it. What does how we imagine dying say about us? Games that let you create a different skin have a play mode. Well, yeah. The skin that you create in Arteroids is via word for weirdos. Afterlife. Play again, Jim? Yes, please. Arteroids prepares you for poetry in 2050. So you get a sense of the text here. I hazard to guess that nobody has played Arteroids more than me. So I should be an expert in driving this thing by now. And what I'd like to do now is show you how I drive this thing. So let's go into play mode. There we are. Now, driving vertically in ArDroids is something that you have to learn how to do, but it's relatively simple. The harder thing is driving horizontally. Yes, it is a little harder. And then you run circles around the texts. Yes. Yeah, so driving horizontally, it's a challenge. But it's a kind of a fun challenge. I mean, in terms of eye-hand coordination, this drives fairly articulately. And it's a bit of a challenge to drive horizontally, to do laps. Poetry is intensest language. It isn't just words on a page, though the page remains important. Poetry goes where language is intensest. So, of course, it goes into computer games, new media works, audio art, films, cultural theory, the theory of computation, all over the place. It's like it sneaks out at night for some fun. The last thing that I want to show you, because it is related to Arteroids, and that's a piece called Jig Sound that is a musical piece, and it has different heaps. A heap is a bunch of sound icons that can be put together in different ways. I made this app called Jig Sound, and the sounds in this particular heap are Arteroid sounds. So I've taken the Arteroid sounds and I have looped them, taken parts of them and looped them. And this is a silent sound, which turns out is kind of useful. You can put sounds together in different ways. Vertical lines make sounds play simultaneously. So now these three sounds are playing synchronizedly, simultaneously. Now I'll go this direction. Now let me skip a few steps. I'm in the midst of putting together ArDroids 2017 at the moment. That will consist of different editions. There'll be the projector for both Mac and PC, which I've done. I've gone into Director and produced the projector for Mac and for PC. And one of the editions will be the Gamers edition, which will include the Mac and the PC projector, as well as a PDF about the game. Another edition will be the Critical edition, and this will include not only the projectors but also the source code, both the Mac and the Windows Director source code. And the Critical edition will also include some essays by various scholars about ArDroids. And as well, it will include something that I haven't produced yet that I'm thinking about and I'm liking the idea of, and that's an ArDroids book. ArDroids itself contains hundreds of texts, hundreds of short texts that I've written, and I'd like to collect those together in one place. That would also be an interesting place for some ArDroids inspired art and perhaps some essays as well. So that would be the Critical edition, and then there'd be another edition, say a reader's edition or something that includes the projectors and also the book. There are other really interesting parts of ArDroids that can be in these or other editions. There's the wonderful Portuguese translation of Arteroids by Rio de Janeiro's Regina Celia Pinto. I would like to update that piece with a new code and offer a projector, i.e. a desktop executable of that piece for Mac and for Windows. Also, there's what I showed you from Jigsound. There's the heap of Arteroid sounds, which deserves some good music to be made with it by somebody out there. There are also all sorts of other things with Arteroids. It's been shown, for instance, in Los Angeles at a place called Machine Gallery. There's some interesting stuff from that event. There was a picture of some kids going to play Arteroids. A kindergarten class that went in to play Arteroids, and they liked it, and they played it, and they got it at that level. There are all sorts of other things related to Arteroids. I showed it in Paris. There's a video of me showing it in Paris. Some of this is available online, some of it isn't. But it'd be nice to have it in one thing. All together in one thing.